Guys, what's up? Welcome to Turbo Chatter. Here we are. We have a very, very special guest today, a super cool guy. The times may be low, but the boost is always high. So with that being said, Master Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and what it is that you do briefly.
What's going on? Yeah, I'm Chris Duplessis. I grew up driving everything, mainly rally cars was kind of my best scenario, I guess. And now I just play with cars all day for work. So, it's life.
Well, saying that, why don't you go ahead and give us your official job title where you currently work? Because I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it could be the best job and the best title in the world. So I work at a private members-only country club that is a racetrack. So we've got a racetrack. We're working on our wet skid pad now. We've got a rally school, off-road stuff. I mean, all of the above. And my title here is the director of fun. So literally anything I can think of that members are going to enjoy, we do it and I execute it. So it's pretty neat.
That's amazing, man. Now, let me give you guys some context because we'll just go ahead and call it out. It's Monticello Motor Club. It is an absolutely amazing, amazing facility. Me personally, I've never seen anything like it before. If you could imagine like fantasy sports camp, but for car guys, this is pretty much exactly what it is. Any kind of racing you can think of, and this is where we're going to get to what Chris does, but this man's like the Bo Jackson of driving, right? Because from rally, he can drift because I've seen him do it. I was in the car with him when he did it, actually. And I don't know if you've gotten to drive that tank, but that's something we're going to get to also.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is my where I work. So this is in our collector car gallery. Some neat stuff.
Amazing.
So that's my office view.
So you really don't mind going to work every day then?
No, it's I don't have to, wake up and drag myself to work.
Nothing better than that, man. Well, before we get to where you are now, let's talk a little bit about how you started and how you got to where you are now. So what was your first real taste of competitive driving or motorsports?
So I grew up in Maine on a 100-acre farm. I've got an older brother, a younger sister. And forever, my brother and I were super competitive. So whether it was like riding bikes or who could dive deeper swimming or whatever. My dad got my brother and I into go-karts on our farm. I think I was 6 years old, or my brother was 6 and I was, 5. And we had a little clay oval and we would just lap and lap and lap. I mean, we had a barn with lights shining on it. We would just drive through the night. I mean, that's all I remember doing growing up. And, so we did that forever. My dad's uncles or brothers got into it. So my uncles, we'd have, little go-kart races all on, a little clay oval. And then from there, my brother actually went and did a little more like pavement driving with WKA. And then we ended up spectating the Mount Washington Hill climb, as well as the New England Forest Rally, which were really close to where I grew up. And from there, it was like, all right, well, cars are cooler than go-karts, as we get older. And so I bought my first race car. It was just a cage shell when I was 15. So a guy had a little Golf that was caged and was looking to sell it. And so I scooped it up, and it took me a few years to build it. But after that, I was racing with my own stuff.
Now, that's amazing, man, because literally that's sort of like the dream story of how people get involved with racing, right? Start off on go-karts or even pedal cars, then move up, buy your first shell, put it together, blood, sweat, and tears, and off you go, right? Now, if I recall correctly, I think I saw that you already have one of your oldest daughter in a go-kart also. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's actually my youngest daughter for her birthday. I was like, listen, what do you want for your birthday? She's 3, or she was turning 3. Yeah. And she's like, Daddy, I want a go-kart. And I was like, heck yeah, you do. We're in.
Proud Papa, man. Proud Papa. Here we go. I love it.
And so she doesn't even fit in it. I mean, she'll drive it with like vice grips, but it's my older daughter who I've been posting videos and stuff, and they love it. I mean, literally this morning I was saying goodbye and my youngest goes, Daddy, remember, I'm a race car driver. That was how she said goodbye.
So your stoke as a dad is just off the charts. It's got to be, right? Because you're seeing them follow in your footsteps. I mean, how much more proud could you be, right?
Exactly. It comes from my wife as well. I actually met her. She was co-driving for a girl at a rally. And a few years ago, we didn't have any rally cars. We kind of sold stuff. We were focusing on work, and we brought the girls to spectate, and they loved it. And my wife turned and looked at me and was like, yo, it's time to get another rally car. So
That's
I
it.
just recently, I'm back in it.
So this is wife endorsed across the board.
Yep.
Oh man, how good is your life right now? You're kind of living your best life, aren't you?
Always, always.
Amazing, dude. Amazing. Well, let's talk a little bit about your achievements and your success in rally, because it wasn't just like, oh, let me try this and see how it goes. You actually kicked some serious ass. So this is your time to humble brag, man. Let us hear about it.
Jeez, I don't brag very well, but yeah, I mean, I think when I got into rally, I had a little front wheel drive, and my biggest, I guess, reason why I did well is I grew up on a gravel road. I worked at a rally school, so I drove nonstop, and I'd show up to rallies, and other guys hadn't practiced since their last one, and just so I had a good package, a car that I built. I knew it was going to fail. I knew how it worked, and then I drove it all the time. I was always in this thing, and so yeah. So my first season, my first full season, or I guess it was still abbreviated, but I was 2007. I won the two-wheel drive national championship. And then I did that a few more times until 2012. But within that, I ended up driving for Scion. So they noticed me actually 0 to 60. The guys that now run Hoonigan, essentially. They ran a magazine. They
Shout
built a
out
little
to Scott.
Scion rally car. Exactly. And so I went and ran that. And then Ford brought in the Fiesta, and they were like, yo, drive that. So I drove for Scion. I drove for Ford. And with Ford, I was actually very lucky enough to go and run 3 or 4 World Rally Championship rounds. So I went and did Greece, Portugal, Wales, and Finland, which, I mean, like, absolute dream come true. From like, the handful of years when I built my own car and started rally to, growing up watching VHS of like my heroes.
Yeah.
And I literally, raced with Petter Solberg, met his kid who, Oliver, who's now racing like insanely professionally. And it was the coolest thing.
Man, my webcam isn't high enough quality, but you would see the goosebumps. The hair. Oh, yeah, you could see a little bit. Yeah, man, just because that's such a badass story, dude. That's literally like the stuff of legend and dreams, man. So I have to say congratulations, because it's really impressive, and you deserve it, man. Like you said, you put in the time, you climb the ladder from the bottom all the way to the top. So it's one of those things that you really just love to see as a fellow car guy, that success can be had, but it takes a lot of hard work and patience. So you're the prime.
Oh yeah, I mean, it from the outside, it all looks great, but I'll give you a kind of a little snippet of one of the struggles we had. So it was 2012 when we were doing the World Rally Championship rounds, and we're on our way to Portugal, and my wife hears that she's had a miscarriage. So literally, I'm going to run like the coolest event ever, and it's like, okay, we got that. I go run the rally, do my best, whatever. We get back, and we went all in. We were spending every penny we made, spent all our savings. And so not a week later, we get back, and our car gets repossessed. So Sarah, my wife's 4Runner that we towed our rally car with, power was shut off. Like, we legit went all in. We spent every penny, all the savings we had. But it was worth it. And neither of us would change any of that for any reason. But it's not that it's, it was, and no, not to be rude, but it's not a rich guy thing where, yeah, I can just go race anytime, because that's the hardest part of motorsports.
Yeah, for sure. It's not a cheap hobby, man. It's the same. I grew up playing hockey, right? And hockey is not a cheap sport to play, because you're outgrowing your equipment all the time. And I think people have a giant misconception that all car guys that do any kind of competitive racing are just loaded and have money spilling out of their pockets. That might be true for some guys that are fortunate enough to have those circumstances, but most dudes, it's kind of rubbing 2 nickels together to make a dime, and exactly what you just described. So let me just say I'm so sorry that happened to you folks as a family, but I'm really grateful that you were willing to share that with us here. Now, something else that's kind of unique about your circumstances is you didn't necessarily expressly do all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive cars. So, right, you started in the Golf, and then you had a lot of success too in rear-wheel drive platforms. So how is that kind of playing into your world, where most guys who want to take to rallying, immediately they think that it's got to be all-wheel drive or nothing? I think it's kind of badass that you did both front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive instead of exclusively all-wheel drive.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, it's just kind of how it happened. I went to a rally school at a young age, and the cars that they had were little Volkswagens. And so right away, it's like, all right, well, this is the car I need. I learned on that.
Yeah.
And so the car I ended up buying was a little Volkswagen. And it ended up, you know, if my parents were into Subarus or I had done something else, it might have been different, my first rally car. But what was neat about front wheel drive is the cost was a bit lower. You just got less moving parts. It's a lighter car. The tires are a smaller size, so they're cheaper. You know, all of the above. So it ended up being a little bit more affordable. And it's really, really hard to compete with the top guys. You know, you got like Subaru Rally Team there. They're spending millions of dollars a year. And, you know, you could have a pretty cool, badass STI, but you're still not competing with these guys
At all. Yeah.
But, you know, with a front wheel drive, the limiting factor is grip. And so it ends up coming down to a lot of it to the driver. And so for me, it just happened to work that way. It was kind of a good place to be. And I have done a few events in all-wheel drive. I did X Games in 2010 in a Subaru and, you know, did quite well. But it's front-wheel drive or two-wheel drive has always been fun. And now my current car is an old Corolla AE86,
Yes.
which is just the most fun. It's probably not, you know, pound for pound and horsepower for horsepower. It's not as quick as a front-wheel drive on gravel, which a lot of people just think, you know, front-wheel drives aren't good rally cars. They're actually better than a rear-wheel drive if you've got the same horsepower and weight. But for fun, there's nothing better, absolutely nothing better than a rear-wheel drive, live axle. I actually just bought a sequential gearbox for it. I got a really good deal on it.
Yes.
So I'll just be raking through the gears. Like it's the perfect car for fun, not chasing championships anymore. Like just go there.
Now, so let that be a lesson to all you guys that are watching and listening. All right. You don't need a super badass built to the nine Evo or STI or Focus RS or whatever it is that you think you need to be able to go out and have fun and get your feet wet and learn. You've heard here from one of the dudes that's the best to do it in the United States that he hauls ass in front wheel drive and rear wheel drive just the same. And it's cheaper, easier to maintain, parts are easier to find. There you go. You heard it from the man himself. And on that note, with the Hachiroku now, which you don't traditionally link with doing rally, right? It's usually like a toge drift style car. Tell me a little bit about Gravel Machinegun. What's that all about?
So yeah, I was running with Nameless Performance, guys out in Oregon. They build a lot of Subaru parts. And they said,
Jason
let's
and John,
rebuild this.
what's up, guys?
Right? Exactly. The coolest guys on the planet, geniuses. But yeah, they said, hey, we built this cool rally car. You want to come out and run it? So I did, I think, 3 or 4 events with them. The coolest car ever. I mean, it's a GT86 with rear-mounted radiator. I mean, 400 horsepower maybe. Hollinger sequential. I mean, just the coolest car. With, you know, they engineered the damper, the suspension. It all works as one package. And so within that, I met John Reed. So John Reed is Mr. Motec. Like the guy tunes all the coolest stuff.
A wizard.
World records.
Genius. Yeah.
Just, yeah, absolutely awesome. And so I met him, and he had this old Corolla that he used to run, I think, 1 or 2 events a year. And so that was 5 years before I even bought this thing. I just like always picking on him, like, yo, sell me your car. When are you gonna, I want that thing.
Yeah.
And so finally he was like, yo, it's up for sale. And I was like, well, shit, I don't have 30 grand. I don't know. Like, I'm broke. And so finally I talked him down a little bit, and I sent him $5,000. I was like, yo, this is all I got in my savings right now. It's yours. I'll figure out the rest.
Yeah.
And so slowly I would like send him money and finally sort it out. And it's because my wife was like, yo, let's get another rally car. Let's do this.
See?
But it's probably the coolest part about this car is that it is full of Motec. Like, the shell's a bit rough. Like, it looks like a rough old little rally car, but it's got a Beams motor. So really cool motor, naturally aspirated, simple. But then it's Motec everything. Like, from the power control module, ECU, thing's got cruise control. Like, I mean, it completely like, and so that's what I wanted. I've used to run into a few issues with like Volkswagen with wiring or this and that, and this car is just like a perfect little package. It's a Toyota. It's going to run forever. Like, I can't be more happy with this thing, and it's fast. I mean, I ran it last July, and I think by the end of the rally we were 5th or 6th overall. Like, going to the last stage, I actually have a video on my phone. It's kind of cool. I kind of look around, and the cars in front of us were Subaru Rally Team, and then old Subaru was basically like a WRC Subaru Rally car run by Ramana Lagaman, who used to run with Subaru Rally Team. then two Fiesta like WRC, and then one was an R5, and then my little car, and then a bunch of other Subarus and cool cars, Fiestas, and literally that's how we were seated. We were the sixth fastest guy, down every stage in this little, I don't want to call it a shit box because the thing's cool as hell, but it's just rough looking.
So you guys got that, right? I couldn't get him to humble brag before, but he just did it now. You see that? He was kicking ass against all kinds of factory rally teams and ex-works cars in a shit box clapped out Corolla, but fully done up to the nines by John Reed. And of course, the driver mod. There it is.
Yeah, good fun. But the tough thing with rally, and you kind of mentioned that it's expensive, like any motorsport. But, from when I first started rallying till now, there's maybe one or two guys that are still doing it. And they're guys that, had their own car and they don't do like full championships. Like it just eats people up. Not they don't love it. It just gets so expensive. And it's that drug. I mean, there's a reason why our car got repossessed and we were basically getting kicked out of our house and we couldn't stop. Like that's what it is. Like any motorsports, even just, modding a car for the street, like you just get hooked and you can't stop.
100%, man. Let me tell you this. I've officially been in one legit sanctioned rally in the Czech Republic. And now, mind you, my buddy said, he got me at the airport, picked me up, and he goes, all right, we're going to go do a rally. And I said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I signed us up, so you better get ready to go. And I said, what do you mean you signed me up? Like, I'm going to be wiping your windshield when you come back from each stage or what? He goes, oh, no, you're Navigator. So mind you, Czech is my first language, but I speak it a heck of a lot better than I write it and read it, right? So here I am, my first rally. I'm strapped into this classic style Impreza, fully done up. It was really fast, loud, everything about a rally car that you dig. Here I am trying to read stage notes and pace notes in Czech while we're going 90, pulling the e-brake sideways. It was the most absurd thing I've ever done in my life, all right? Entirely awesome, right? Off the charts rad. We got back after, I want to say, maybe 2 or 3 stages. I opened the door in the pit and puked everywhere because the adrenaline had finally worn off, and now I realized what had just happened. I lost 12 pounds straight up from sweating in the race suit, right? Because it's you got to be fireproof. I got the bucket on. I got the Peltor, the intercom. Opened the door, yacked everywhere. So that was my first rally experience, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's the coolest motorsport. The car's street legal. You're driving down roads that you could potentially go drive the next day. Like they're just public gravel roads. Like it is just, and I kind of happened into it. It just was in my hometown. My dad and brother and I went and spectated, and we were like, well, this is cool. I mean, if I had grown up with where I work now in my backyard, maybe would have gotten like road racing or drifting or something. But, I grew up on a gravel road. Rally was just it. It just kind of made sense.
Well, super quick, man, too, because I'm always curious about this. How do you build and establish that rapport with your Navigator? Because at this point, right, you're pretty much putting your life and trust in someone else's hands as to tell you when to turn, how hard to throttle, how hard to brake. I mean, it's wild. People don't really understand that, yeah, rallying as a driver is rad and super badass, but it's a two-man crew. And if your Navigator doesn't know his or her shit, you're going to be wrapped around a tree before you even get through the first stage.
Yeah, I mean, it is 100% a team effort. I mean, you can nowhere near drive the speed if you don't know, what's coming up with the Navigator. I've been very fortunate to have really good ones along the way, whether it was actually my co-driver that rode with me in the WRC stuff. He's actually currently running WRC rallies. Alex Kirani's his name, and the dude is just insanely good. I was very fortunate to have him for a handful of events. But they actually just won the 2-wheel drive class in Monte Carlo before, this stuff all hit, which is just, I mean, he's actually living in the UK, but he's an American kid who's just killing it.
That's amazing, man. So it was a good experience for you. You guys developed that kind of unspoken bond, right? Where he knows how you drive completely 100%. So he knows exactly how to pace his reading of the notes. He knows the speed at which you like to hear. That's awesome, man. I can't even imagine. You guys really have to have that kind of link, right?
Yeah, I even actually in Maine, this last rally I ran with my my best friend growing up. So never run a rally, has always been around. It used to help me crew. And so I asked him, like, yo, man, like, we're going for fun. Like, I mean, I say that, like, I'm not competitive at all, but we're going for fun. Like, let's just do our thing. And he did amazing, like, but his first rally ever. And, but, we already kind of had that bond. And my wife Sarah actually co-drove for me up the Mount Washington hill climb. So Mount Washington, paved road, some dirt, but goes up the tallest peak in the east. And she did amazing as well. It was actually really fun with her because she knows how fast I can be and knows like when I'm not listening, and she would like scold me in the car, like, yo, I told you it was this, like, stay on it. I'm like, okay, like there's a big drop. I'm trying to trust you. Like,
So she could straddle both wife mode and co-driver mode simultaneously.
oh yeah.
I love that, man. Now, super quick too, let's talk about then, because of all the success and the achievements that you've had as a pro driver, let's talk a little bit about the movie, the documentary that came to be as a result of everything that you've done in the world of rally, right? So it's called Easier Said Than Done. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so actually a fellow competitor, Matt Johnston, approached me in 2010 and was like, hey man, he a little background on him. He was an IT guy at like a high school, had a little Civic, same thing, ran when he could, regional events, was decently quick, and then sold his car and was kind of out of it, and was just like, yo, I need to do something with rally. Like, I want to tell the story. Like every rally guy, they think it's the coolest thing ever. They want to tell everyone. And so he approached me and was like, yo, I want to make like a feature length rally documentary. Like, I don't know where it's going to go, but I want to get some cool footage, get some interviews, travel the world as much as I can, and make this happen. And so he actually came and we filmed a pilot essentially. And he did a GoFundMe type page. And I think he raised, I want to say like 50 grand, 50 grand, and was like, oh, like, all right, like I can actually, this isn't going to be just like a little YouTube thing. Like, let's make something happen. And so he spent the next 2 years filming me as well as the whole sport of rally. I mean, he went to some WRC events here in the States. And, you know, I was racing and did some interviews, but nothing too crazy. At least I thought. And then we go to Grand Rapids for the premiere, and it was like very heavily based on my story through 2010 to 12, and kind of what we were doing and where and the struggles and all that. So, you know, in the coolest time of my career, as well as the toughest, you know, with all the things that were happening, I now have this piece of, you know, work that got it. You know, this thing got some film festival awards. I mean, it is very, very good. So you can get it on iTunes, easier said than done. But it just, yeah, it's really cool to have that forever. I now have like what I did, where I raced for forever.
That's it. It's etched in digital stone, man. So now, even if you want to forget it, which you never, of course, would, you can't, because it's out there for the world to see. I'll put up some links for you guys to check that out in the description of the video, and maybe some cool slides or whatever at the end. But that's not your only on-camera experience, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit too? Because as far as I know, I think you've done some stunt driving too for some major movies and TV. Have you not?
Yeah, so I've done, you know, some stuff here and there. Probably the coolest one, I did some driving for The Town. So it's been Affleck movie based in Boston. Just extra work, but just being involved in the film industry, really, really cool. Done some TV commercials, stuff for Jaguar, BMW. A lot of it has come from where I work here. You know, we get manufacturers here, they want to drive on track. So yeah, I mean, my next career, which, I mean, I really can't go anywhere from here, but I just love the film industry. I think it's really cool watching it all come together. You know, you slide through a corner with 10 different angles and how they clip it. I just think that, you know, it's really, really neat, that aspect of it.
So did you guys get that? All you OEMs and you manufacturers out there, if you need a guy to drive for your commercials or any kind of on-screen stuff, here's your guy right here. Sign him up. He's easy to get a hold of.
Yep,
now,
love it.
That being said, man, right? So let's then talk a little bit about how you ended up at MMC and exactly the transition from competitive driving as a race car driver to now sort of, you're still on the track a lot, but you're doing a lot more kind of daily stuff and sort of operations at the club too. So let's talk a little bit about how that happened.
Yeah, so I was living in New Hampshire. I was working at a rally school there, and I was just ready for something new. And I ended up instructing here. So we're in New York. So we're 90 minutes outside of the city in upstate New York. And I ran into a guy that worked here, and he was like, you know, we always need instructors. So I came up and instructed for a season. And then they offered me a full-time position being the track director. So for the last, 5 years, I was a track director. So I manage everything from our race series to, all our safety personnel, our flaggers, things like that. A lot of day-to-day operations. And then from there, this last year, I got kind of the upgrade to director of fun, which I still manage, kind of all the same stuff, but I kind of branch out now. And I mean, going into this year already, we have a Sherp coming. So if you don't know what a Sherp is, it's like this Russian-built, like off-road vehicle that floats. So it's these big tires that you can deflate and things. You've got to YouTube them. They're the coolest thing. So we're getting a Sherp. We're getting some old diesel Defenders from a company called Himalaya. We just signed on Porsche. We've got BMW. We've got Mini, Jaguar. So like all these cool OEMs that are always here. And the coolest, we are building a European-style rallycross course in the middle of our South Course.
That is completely bonkers. So super quick aside, because rallycross is not all that popular here in North America, but in Europe, it is completely mental. And the cars that come out of it, you literally would not believe. I don't want to step on Chris's tongue or toes too much, but imagine combination of drift car, rally car, sprint car, and circuit car with more or less no rules and open classes. Completely bonkers stuff that you really have to see to believe. So I'm mega stoked that you guys are setting something up like that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be mega. I mean, I was just talking to the guy that's doing the bulldozer work, and it's going to have 2 jumps, and it's cool as hell. And then on top of that, we bought 4 or 6 cross cart buggies. So what a cross cart is, it's a motorcycle powered rally buggy. Actually, look, my background, we were doing a lot of Zoom meetings and I was trying to convince them. So it's one of these. So sequential gearbox, little motorcycle powered buggy. And so we'll end up doing a race series with those, as well as, whatever else we'd think of for cars. But
man, well, so yeah, I can't think of anyone better to be doing the job that you're doing than you. Because look at this. You're just touching every single form of motorsport and racing that there could possibly be. So the members there, man, they have life made in the shade on Easy Street. They want to do it, Chris hooks it up. Now, those buggies are super badass because it's got what, like sport bike motor in it, right? So it'll rev to what, like 11, 12, 13 grand?
Yep. Yeah, so it's a GSXR 750. It's got the motorcycle gearbox. So they weigh 700 pounds and they have 150 horsepower.
Oh, my God.
The coolest.
So needless to say, you could get in a lot of trouble. And by that, I mean the most fun possible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And mixed surfaces. You go from dirt to asphalt, jumps, side by side. I mean, what could be cooler?
That's amazing, man. Well, I'm hoping to get Bucky Lasik on for one of these interviews, too. I'll have to link him up with you because he's got to come out. And for you guys to shred together, I got to believe that would be a serious scene, man.
Oh, heck yeah. Bucky's such a good dude. We message back and forth here and there.
And he bleeds WR blue like me, so we always rap and vibe about old clapped-out Subarus. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Now, tell me this, man. Do you ever think at some point that you're going to make a return to competitive racing? Or at this point, have you sort of hung up your helmet as far as competing for trophies or acclaim, and it's more just for fun?
I mean, I would. I honestly, I'm having so much fun at work that, like, I don't need to go do something else. I'm definitely at the point where I don't want to be broke as much anymore. So I don't want to spend my own money doing it. Yeah. I'd love to do some stuff with like a company like Nameless here and there, one-off events, interesting cars. But yeah, I mean, I just don't want to spend all my pennies on it.
Yeah, definitely understood. Cause like we've talked about, man, it ain't cheap. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. I mean, you can forget about having any kind of steady mortgage payment and take it, especially now that you're a dad, because you see how fast the girls grow and you have to buy clothes for them all the time.
It's crazy though. I mean, I get just as much of a kick out of watching my little girls rip around their go-kart. I mowed a little grass track, and so now they've not only driven on pavement, but my oldest one is like, Dad, this is way cooler. She's like counter steering, drifting through corners. We go out when it rains. She ran a full tank of gas through her go-kart the other day in the rain, like sliding.
Oh, just man. See?
In her blood for sure.
That's it. And of course, just like you're saying, man, you don't so much need to do it yourself anymore now that you see that the girls are so interested in it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as a family, and you know, rally actually, I was kind of lucky growing up. I had a really cool hobby that kept me out of trouble. You know, like
Yeah.
I drove slow on the street because I was like, shit, I can't lose my license because I wouldn't be able to rally. So I would like follow the laws, the rules. My buddies would be going having parties and drinking and stuff. I'm like, shit, man, I got my car to work on. I'm not spending money on any of that. So like, you know, as a dad now, it's like I need my girls to have a cool hobby that's healthy, essentially.
Yeah.
Because you know, this day and age, you could be sitting in the basement playing video games all the time and doing extracurricular things. And so getting outside, playing with cars, it's awesome.
Well, what's super rad about it too is that it's a family affair, right? Your wife's into it, both the girls are into it. Now, if I remember right, I think your brother, does he still crew for Ken Block? Is he still out there doing stuff with him? Or is
So he actually isn't. So yeah, he spent like 5 years being like Ken's right hand guy. So he went there as like a shop manager, and by the end he was actually doing some, you know, marketing stuff with him, some YouTube videos. But he loves Maine. He was, you know, Park City, so he just wanted to be home. So he's just hanging out at home now. He'll still end up doing some motorsport stuff here and there, but yeah,
That's
for
awesome,
now he's
man. So see, not only mom and dad appreciate and promote competitive driving and go-karts, and soon I'm sure there'll be even little slightly larger vehicles, but Uncle Forrest too, right? So across the board,
exactly.
that's it. You guys all have gas in your blood.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny. I grew up on a farm. My mom grows flowers. Like literally, that was our family business. And so it's like my dad, you know, used to say, "My thumb's black and blue, and my wife's is, you know, green." It's like it really is two ends of the spectrum.
That's amazing, man. And I think you guys have some really awesome pond or lake up there too, right? Where you guys can do some ice racing even in the winter.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, the kid that co-drove for me, my buddy Andy, he has a house on a lake, and it freezes up, and we've been playing on it for years. I mean, we used to stud up an old Subaru I had. We for plenty of winters used to beat this thing, and so yeah. Once in a while, we throw some events on the pond.
That's awesome, man. I think I remember Turk and Forsberg came up there at some point too and drove with you guys, right?
Yep. Yeah,
See,
my brother set all that up, and you know, just whatever's fun.
that's it, man. Exactly. You got to have a good time, right?
Exactly.
Now, you had mentioned too, man, and I had mentioned it also. So the way I know Chris, more or less, is we had chatted a couple times beforehand, but a shop I was working with at one point, we took a very famous, well-known Japanese R34 Skyline drift car up to shoot some stuff with Ryan and Jacob and the Donut, now race service guys. And Chris actually ended up driving the Skyline and driving the wheels off of it. Super badass job. So that kind of leads me into, do you ever think that you would get into drifting, man, at all? Not even competitively, but maybe just for fun, to build yourself like a little drift car and take it from there?
Oh, dude, so you know, right up there with just, you know, some fun stage rally stuff, and rallycross drifting is the coolest.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a lot of fun, man. Yeah.
a proper car like that Skyline, or you know, even newer, insanely fun. And you know, it's all car stuff. It's all technology. You know, you ratcheting through gears in a sequential, burning tires off, you know, 80 miles an hour sideways. Like that's the coolest.
Now, to be candid and fair, not every drift car and even a weekend warrior is going to have a Hollinger sequential transmission in it. So that's Chris has been a little spoiled in his rally days, so he could just click back and forth, right? But if you were going to build something, I know you guys work closely with BMW up there. What do you think? Maybe something like an E36?
So yeah, my brother actually has an E36, and what a cool little car out of the box. I don't know. I would drive or build anything. It's too bad Corollas are so expensive because I'd
Oh,
love to have a drift car and a rally car, but to find a street car, it's just crazy money. So I don't know. I mean, the cars we have at work, I'm really spoiled there. I get to drive a lot of fun street cars. I actually just the other day drove the brand new 911 Turbo S.
oh.
Like, good God, with the rear steer. I mean, this thing is a drift machine for like a rear engine car, like insane.
Super quick as an aside, because I want to get your take on it. I've seen a lot of people say that the margin now of performance between the base model Carrera and the Turbo and even the Turbo S is so narrow that most people, unless there's somebody like you who's a pro driver, really wouldn't be able to tell, one, the difference between them, and two, they'd never be able to push the turbo models even beyond the limit of what they're intended for. So from what I've gathered, and I mean, it's cool for me because, you know, I love turbos. So for me, this is badass. But at the same time, it's a little disappointing only because you used to look up at the Turbo, and the Turbo S model is like God's gift to the car guy, right? And now it's kind of like you jump in the base model and you can hammer down. And unless you're a pro driver, you really wouldn't need anything more.
Yeah, I mean, for the street, like the base model, I mean, anything, all these modern cars are so insanely fast.
Yeah.
So for the street, you're better off to have like a little Miata where you can at least rip through the gears and you feel like you're driving fast. I mean, my daily car around here, around work, is an M5, which like 600 horsepower. Like on the track, again, it's manageable all day. You can click it in rear-wheel drive mode. It's all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive. But God, as soon as you take it on the street, this thing, like, you're gonna get a ticket immediately. Like, it's so fast. And all the Porsche models are the same way. They're just insanely quick. But yeah, for sure, the base model is a perfect car. There's no need to go all out and buy the coolest one.
Well, and that's what I always kind of think to myself too, is I see dudes that are like, oh, you know, I went out and I spent all this money on this crazy hypercar and it makes X amount of power. I always feel like it's a lot harder to learn how to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow, right? So that's why,
Oh, for sure.
specifically, exactly like with the Hachiroku, with the Corolla, right? Or even a Miata, just like you said, you really have to like wring its neck to get it to go at 9/10 or 10/10. And at that, a lot of different things are happening at that point, right? Like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face. And when you're up at 9/10, 10/10 in a Miata and you're bouncing off the rev limiter or you're sideways in the Corolla, a lot of weird things can happen.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you're way better off with a little slow car that you can beat on and you don't care about.
See, man, awesome, awesome. Now, you guys heard that, right? That is a quote coming from this man here who has won, what, 4 national championships? Is that right? 3 or 4?
Yep.
I can't ever remember the number.
4.
All right? So you heard it here, all right? This guy's telling you, you don't need some kind of crazy turbo, all-wheel drive, anything. Get yourself a Miata, get yourself an E30, an E36, a 240 if you can find one that doesn't have 240 tax, and learn how to drive it at full tilt.
100%.
Awesome, man. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we hit on that. We talked about the kids. I'm super stoked that you're telling me that the girls love racing and motorsports so much already. What's next for them? I mean, I know they're still small, right? So they're going to stay in karts for a while. But what do you think's coming after that?
We'll see. I mean, I don't know what the rules are now. I don't look at the rule book much anymore, but I'd love to get them co-driving. I mean, I think, you know, as soon as it used to be, I think 15 that they could co-drive, or 14. Yeah. So if that's still the case, get them in. We'll go do a small event. We'll see. I mean, and honestly, I'm not pushing them at all to do, if they want to get horseback riding, or, I mean, my one daughter that is driving go-kart sideways, she also does cheerleading. So like whatever they want to do, but the karting, they just happen to be enjoying it. So we're going to keep doing it.
You better get your gun permit now, man. Between being a cheerleader and a car chick, you are going to have little horn dogs beating down your door in high school, man.
Well, if they're anything like my wife, they'll be able to hold their own.
Amazing, man. You guys staying safe during all this craziness? Everybody's good up there?
Yeah, we got a big yard. We've been playing outside a bunch. It's actually, you know, you always got to see the silver lining. And, you know, my wife and I were talking about how our girls aren't going to remember what the coronavirus is, or they may, but they're going to remember this as like the spring and summer that mom and dad were home a lot more. And like we played outside and like we go-karted. You know, we're like trying to do the online learning stuff, but I've taught my daughter how to start a fire. We're doing like, you know, experiments. Like every day there's something new. Like it's way cooler than school.
Well, and that's exactly the sort of thing that they're going to remember, right? It's all about time. It doesn't even really matter what you're doing. It's just time spent with your kids. That's what they remember. FaceTime with mom and dad.
Yep, exactly.
Amazing, man. Well, what's next for MMC? Do you have any kind of hints or clues of any secret stuff you guys are working on that you want to share?
So yeah, I mean, just like I said, all the things we've added this year is cool. You know, part of the Rallycross, we thought up a race of champions type race. So we've got a fleet of Porsche Caymans that are all like a spec car. So as a member, you can join our race series, pay the money, and you get a spec Cayman. We're going to do three events. So in the morning, you run a Cayman. The afternoon, you run the buggy on Rallycross, and we do that times 3. And we'll come up with, like, you know, our club champion. And that's on top of we have got a Miata series. We've got a GT series for, you know, all the bigger, faster cars. but yeah, that we're putting a lot of eggs into that right now to see how it goes, because a lot of race series are getting canceled or pushing stuff back.
Yeah.
And people may not want to travel as much. So if they can be at their home track and racing with us, it'll be better for everyone. So I'm super excited about that. We've got a wet skid pad. I've actually got guys right now, same thing out this window, grinding it. So it's going to be a really, it's a 250-foot circle, but it's going to have sprinklers that are set in the pavement, and it's getting grind to be, boilerplate smooth. So it should be a really fun little spot to get our members to start sliding around a bit, in hopes that we start a drift school at some point. So
awesome, man. Well, remind me, once we finish this up, I'm going to have to connect you with my buddy out in NorCal, because he actually runs a drift school, and it's been amazing how it took off. So I'll link you guys up. Maybe you can pick his brain and maybe collaborate and see what comes up with that. But thank you so much, man. I'm beyond stoked that you were willing to make time for me. Thank you. I know I probably asked you a ton of corny, lame questions, but I think it's important for people to hear sort of the progression of an actual race car driver, and not just sort of tin can dreams and aspirations. Oh, well, I want to be a driver, but I don't want to put in the work. You guys heard it here. It's not just, okay, hit a light switch and all of a sudden you're a competitive race car driver. There's a ton of blood, sweat, tears, money, time away from home, heartbreak. You heard it. Chris summed it up perfectly. So mega thankful that you're a homie, man. Thank you so much for your time and sitting down to do this with me. And hopefully, man, I'll see you sometime sooner than later.
Dude, come visit, please.
I have to, man. Last time I was there, I had such a blast, but I didn't even get to drive anything. I was just sitting there like a goofball staring.
We'll get you driving this time.
Yeah, boy. See, all right, you guys heard it. He promised. So if I go up there,
I'll send you. We got a rally school here. I'll send you through our rally school.
Ah, awesome, man.
You got little Mazda 2s, so we'll get you sliding around the front wheel drive. It'll be perfect.
It's so funny you said that, man. I did a day school at Team O'Neill in New Hampshire, and then I did a day school of Miata track racing up at Thompson in upstate Connecticut. So either or, man, hand me off. I'm ready to rip.
Love it.
Beautiful. Brother Chris, thank you again, man. I'm going to put up a bunch of your social links and some screenshots of all your stuff so people can find you. Because if you guys want to hear more about Chris, learn more about him, go hit him up, follow all his different pages and accounts. And he's easy to get a hold of. You want to ask him questions, you can message him, whatever else. And thanks again, brother. Hugely appreciated, man.
You got it, PJ. Thanks so much, man.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, see ya.
Later. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Turbo Chatter. Here's where you can find Chris on all his social media and online accounts. And remember, please smash that like and subscribe button so you can keep up on our conversations with some of the raddest people in the automotive world.
Sounds like squirrels are being pushed into the engine. That's what this is. It's a squirrel mincer.